just about ready for our main event of the evening, a professional bout scheduled for 5 3-minute rounds between Ariel Sepulveda out of the Dominican Republic, now fighting out of the Bronx, New York, and Canadian-born and bred Joey George, aka Furious George, who is currently sealing the ring here at Lucky Strike Manhattan. Ariel Agami with Gavin Van Black and Phoenix Carnivale, as well, of course, as the Q Live Sports team. This should be an excellent bout. Two experienced professional fighters. Sepulveda entering the contest at 5-2. George at 3-1. And this should be an action-packed affair to close out another exciting evening on Friday Night Fights presented by Chang Beer. Sepulveda out of Anderson's Martial Arts in Lower Manhattan. Joey George representing Mass Academy Martial Arts in Ontario. My broadcast partner Gavin Van Black informing me that George drove 10 hours to take part in this fight tonight.
Absolutely.
He looked a little ornery at the weigh-in yesterday. You can understand why after a trip like that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Him and his coach drove down 10 hours from Ontario. Doing that on the late crash gotta be hard.
Let's go up to David Diamante for the introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, good evening and welcome to Lucky Strike here in Midtown Manhattan. It's now time for the Friday Night Fights featured bout of the evening, brought to you by Chang Beer. This bout is sanctioned by the WKA, President in attendance, Brian Crenshaw. Your referee when the bell sounds, Chris Wagner. And now, ladies and gentlemen, 5 rounds of professional full rules Muay Thai for the vacant WKA North American 185-pound title. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, he wears black with gold lettering. He weighed in at a ready 183 pounds. His professional record, 5 wins against 2 defeats. He represents Anderson's Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, from New York City, please welcome Ariel Smash Sepulveda. Sepulveda. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the red corner, he wears the black with white and red trim. He weighed in at a ready and even 184 pounds. Professional record, 3 victories against 1 defeat. He represents MAS from Cambridge, Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joey Furious George. George.
Chris Wagner, our third man in the ring for our final bout of the evening, the main event. Ariel, the Smash Sepulveda, goes head-to-head with Furious George, Joey George out of Ontario, Canada. Here we go. We're underway in round 1.
And Joey George, taller than the already really tall Ariel Sepulveda.
6'4" is Joey George. That could play a role in this bout, obviously. Seen a couple of decisive size advantages throughout the evening on Friday Night Fights, but here we are in the professional ranks, scheduled for 5 3-minute rounds. And right now, Sepulveda and George locked up.
And George going for the throw there really launched Sepulveda across the ring. Sepulveda keeping his balance, staying on his feet, didn't go down on that.
Sepulveda originally from San Cristobal in the Dominican Republic, while Joey George fights out of Cambridge, Ontario. That's where MAS
George
Academy is.
Working really good elbows there on that right side.
Good right hand from George. Sepulveda as an answer. George tries the elbow as the 2 clinch. 2 exchanging knees in the clinch now. Sepulveda trying to muscle George off of him now. It's going to be a tough fight. Two primed and ready fighters in excellent shape.
And Sepulveda's already cut.
Unclear if it was from an elbow or a headbutt inside.
There were four consecutive right side elbows that came from. Joey George knows exactly what he's doing.
And already blood coming down the head of Ariel Sepulveda from the left side.
That is a nasty gash above the left eye, just above the hairline.
And already Sepulveda favoring that eye, wiping the blood away with the glove. Good left hand though for Sepulveda. The smash. Leans in with the elbow.
Beautiful left elbow for Sepulveda.
George looks like he's almost rubbing the glove, his right glove, up against the cut area of Sepulveda's head. Little gamesmanship there, perhaps. A wild right hand partially lands for George. Good left hand for Sepulveda. George basically stepped into it. Final minute of round number one. Big left hand.
Chin checking left hand for Sepulveda. Nice elbow off that left side from Sepulveda.
Trying to answer the early elbows of George that cut Sepulveda's head open. Final 20 seconds of round number one. Scheduled for 5 3-minute rounds. Under 10 seconds now.
Joey George has got to keep his hands up.
Sepulveda tries the elbow. George tries one as well, and that's the end of round one. Oh boy, we are in for some kind of fight here in the main event.
Into a brawl.
That's what the fans want to see here from Lucky Strike Manhattan. This is Friday Night Fights. That's what it's all about.
Fortunately, James Guccione, James Gooch out of Seton is in the corner. He is a highly experienced cut man. That's why a lot of the pro fighters now are starting to use him. If they don't have a good cut, James is the man. He's made a business out of this.
The Gooch, he's everywhere.
One of my favorite fighters, man. His last outing, I thought he had expanded so much on what he is as an athlete. Really impressive win last time. And just you couldn't ask for a sweeter guy.
We're set for round number two here, a scheduled 5 in our main event of the evening, Sepulveda and George. Sepulveda was cut open early in this fight by some vicious right elbows in the clinch from Joey George, but may not be directly above the eye, kind of a little bit more towards the side of the head. We'll see how it affects him as the fight goes on. Sepulveda fighting out of the Bronx, New York by way of San Cristobal in the Dominican Republic. Joey George out of Kitchener, Ontario in Toronto, about 60 miles west of Toronto. Excuse me, Kitchener, Ontario in Canada, 60 miles west of Toronto. Again, these two men locked up in the clinch. Chris Wagner will force the two men to part ways.
Good counter with a jab from Sepulveda.
But now Sepulveda a bit off balance, although he's able to corral the teep attempt by George. Chris Wagner not letting these two men mill around on the ropes. And it looks like George may have an opening on the left side of his face.
Yep.
Monster left leg lands to the rib cage of George. Sepulveda looking pumped up right now.
He's got to not jump in with that jab. He's got to place it, follow in behind it with combinations.
Halfway through round number two here. Our main event on Friday Night Fights shaping up to be a bloodbath. Couple of mean elbows by Ariel Sepulveda, who's able to duck out of the way of a right hand from Joey George. Sepulveda throws those elbows like he's throwing a baseball almost.
Yep. That's experience.
Sepulveda, a former baseball player in the Dominican Republic. Both men tied up in the clinch now.
Definite fatigue starting to show.
Both men trying to exchange some knees here. Sepulveda trying to work George back into the neutral corner. Now up against the ropes. Final 30 seconds of round 2. Sepulveda trying to chop down with the elbow. Both men are cut open.
Nice leg kick from George. 10-second hammer.
Step in knee for Sepulveda as we wind down here in round number 2. Tremendous action on Friday Night Fights as always. What do you see from these two guys right now, Gavin? Both hurt, both tired already, and still a long way to go in this fight.
A long way to go in this fight. And they get on the inside. They're looking for every. Both of them are kind of like making a game out of every opportunity they can when they hit with the elbows and to try to cut each other. This is turning into like very much a dueling elbows match. My suggestion for George is to stay on the outside where he was landing good solid shots. The elbows are effective, but he was working better on the outside than Ariel was.
We saw a very similar situation a few months back right here at Lucky Strike Manhattan when Ariel Abreu took on Paul Banashik. Banashik, the longer, leaner fighter. Abreu, the shorter, stockier guy who wanted to get inside, and Banashik kind of took the bait as the night went on. Abreu able to score a decision. Similar thing playing out right here. Joey George not staying on the outside.
Sepulveda's too powerful to be on the inside with.
Although there, George begins round 3 with a good left leg to the ribcage of Sepulveda.
But he's back on the inside, and Sepulveda is a strong athlete.
Sepulveda's wheelhouse right now. This is where he wants to be.
That was not the right range for that weapon.
George tries the back kick, ends up spilling onto the canvas. Directly ruled a slip by Chris Wagner. Good combo upstairs from George, but Sepulveda has a left hook in store.
2 good knees from George. Fatigue starting to show straight across the board on both athletes.
Sepulveda sticks the left leg in.
And he is George is throwing that right elbow like it's a stone hammer.
Trying some knees now. He's again locked up with Sepulveda up against the ropes. Luckily for George, Sepulveda came up empty with a right elbow a moment ago. Again, these two men locked up in the clinch. A war of attrition forming right now in our main event on Friday Night Fights. Again, George will lean in on Sepulveda and shove him against the ropes.
Step on, he's got to step off at angles, can't stay dead in front. Sepulveda's going to walk in, tie him up.
Both men exchanging partially landed knees in the clinch. Sepulveda pawing at that left eye a bit. Sticks a left hand in though, and another. Now some distance. Can Joey George use this to his advantage? Sticks the body with the right hand.
Stuck inside again.
And again, the two are locked up in the corner. Final minute of round number 3. We're scheduled for 5 in an all-action main event on Friday Night Fights. Swinging right hand for George.
George's got to straighten that right hand out.
A little bit of a looper there.
Big arcing right hand, and it takes a lot of the power out of it.
Sepulveda still having some trouble with the blood on the left side of his face. Final 10 seconds of round 3. George going to work now in the neutral corner. Tries the left elbow, but Sepulveda able to score in the final seconds of the round.
Once again, I just want to thank all of our wonderful sponsors for tonight.
Good stuff from both fighters there.
And to get the last
Mohegan
two.
Sun Resort and Casino.
A much-needed
Lucky
break.
Strike,
Such a vast
Adidas,
difference, Gavin, when you get to the
Fitness
professional
NYC,
ranks. You're dealing
and
with
of course,
3-minute rounds. I mean,
Beer. Thank you to all of our
obviously the math is
sponsors.
pretty simple. It's 50% longer than the
Longer,
amateur rounds,
yep.
but what kind of impact does that have on your body when you take that step up from amateur to professional?
It's
How
a
significant is that?
Big difference in training. The problem is that this is when people need to really start to specify on their conditioning practices as opposed to, let's say, strength and conditioning, which you can't train strength and conditioning at the same time. You have to separate those energy systems. And that's what all the better coaches are doing now. What happens is if you try to train both strength and conditioning at the same time, you end up with an overtrained and sick athlete. And that's a major thing when you step up to a pro level like this, to be smart about your training.
Round 4 is underway. Sepulveda and George go back to work. Both corners doing an outstanding job limiting the damage from the cuts that the two men have respectively.
Nice long knee from George. That right elbow again, landing from George.
That's what caused problems for Sepulveda early in round 1. And again, the clinch. Chris Wagner's seen enough, he'll break up the fighters.
Nice knee from Sepulveda.
Tries another one as George attempts the right elbow. This is our main event on Friday Night Fights. Spinning elbow try by George comes up empty. Left jab from Sepulveda, but a right hand from George. He needs to straighten that out, as Gavin said.
Big looping telegraphed right hand. Oh,
Sepulveda trying some knees from the
to
clinch.
head.
Able to stick one in. And left leg to the ribcage of Joey George. Sepulveda gaining some traction here, but he's clearly fatigued. He does get in the right hand though. And George has to tie up. Past the halfway point of round number 4. Both guys have lost a little steam on their punches and kicks here and knees. Fatigue setting in, and for the folks at home, you see a lot of clinching in a fight. That doesn't mean these guys are not working hard. A lot of energy being expended in the squared circle right now. Sepulveda switching up on the knees. George lands one of his own.
Knee to the head.
But Sepulveda bringing that massive
George
left knee
gotta
into George.
Keep that head up. That is a dangerous position to be in.
Sepulveda. That's called a slip by Chris Wagner, but Sepulveda seemed to be gaining some ground there on Joey George.
Sepulveda is emboldened now.
Well said, Gavin. Final
That
moments.
right there.
Another knee inside, and Sepulveda is looking for that kill shot with the elbow over the top. Nearly had it a few moments ago, under 10 seconds in round 4.
He's got a
Round 4 comes to a close as the Lucky Strike Manhattan crowd chants Ariel.
coming into the 5th and final.
The San Cristobal native makes his home in the Bronx for the last decade. So New York's his hometown now, and he's trying to send Joey George, AKA Furious George, back north of the border with a loss. Sepulveda enters the action at 5-2. George at 3-1 in the professional ranks in Thai boxing. My name's Ariel Agami. I'm sitting alongside Gavin Van Black and Phoenix Carnavale for another outstanding installment of Friday Night Fights from Lucky Strike Manhattan, and of course, our great team from Q Live Sports bringing you all the great sights and sounds. Some swelling starting to take shape on the
Ladies
face of
and
Joey
gentlemen,
George. He looks a bit
this
worse
is
for the
the
wear.
fifth
And that can
and
influence the
final
judges as well,
round.
Gavin. Just who
Absolutely.
looks worse
Who
after
looks
the round.
more torn up?
Not necessarily indicative of who did more work, but just who looks worse for the wear.
And Joey George looking pensive, working his way in. Good right hand.
This fight may well be hanging in the balance here. Our final round of the evening. Sepulveda and George locking up on the west side of Manhattan. George tries the leg kick. Sepulveda sizing up George. Perhaps looking for that one big blow over the top. Needing to close ground against the 6'4" Canadian.
Oh, high left. Blocked by Sepulveda. And Joey George starting to throw and leaving himself susceptible to that left knee to the head by Sepulveda.
George tries the inside elbow, but Sepulveda able to avoid it and tie George up again. That's the 1 minute mark of round number 5. Our closing round here on Friday Night Fights. Everything on the line here, including a WKA title belt in the 185-pound division. Again, these two locked up in the corner. Past the halfway mark of round 5. Sepulveda.
Wagner breaking it.
Get the sense that the fight has gone the way Sepulveda has wanted in terms of keeping Joey George close and being able to do damage inside, not letting George extend and get distance. We'll see if the judges feel that way.
George has got to start making some moves here. He's up against the hometown favorite.
Both men trying for elbows late in this fight. Final minute of action here. Sepulveda tried to step in, and Joey George tried the spinning back elbow. Now Sepulveda staggered a bit up against the ropes. Good knee inside by George. Under 30 seconds now in round 5. It all comes down to this. Sepulveda trying to muscle George off of him with that big left elbow. Chris Wagner breaks up the fighters once more. 10 seconds left.
Oh, high with the left.
Good left leg up high from George. One of the better blows of this 5th and final round, and that'll do it. Ariel Sepulveda and Joey George go the distance in the main event on Friday Night Fights. But once again, Gavin, it falls on to the judges to decide the victor here.
Ladies and gentlemen, post-fight
and again,
party right after this
it
over
comes
in the
down
Lux
to
room with the fighters.
who do the
Chance to
judges
win
think did
prizes.
more work.
After party in the
Seemed
Lux
like a
room
pretty
right
even
here.
fight for the
It
most
seemed
part.
like an even fight. I see Sepulveda pulled ahead in the last 2 rounds, and I think that will weigh heavily with the judge's decision. I think you're going to see Sepulveda take this away by hopefully what I would say would be a split decision.
Saw a split decision in our very last fight in the amateur ranks. Michael Misa edging George Etienne. Will it be the same result here as Ariel Sepulveda tries to improve to 6-2 as a pro?
I'll see you tomorrow, brother.
Joey George trying to go up to 4-1. Ariel Agami with Gavin Van Black, Phoenix Carnivale, and the Q Live Sports team from Lucky Strike Manhattan on the west side of New York City. And another tremendous night of action is in the books. Just one more bit of business left to decide as David Diamante looks over the scorecards. Phoenix Carnivale will be with the winner in mere moments.
And what many people don't know is that our very own Phoenix Carnivale is an extremely talented athlete herself, extremely good hand skills in boxing, Muay Thai skills, understands this fight game better than most guys do. She can sit there and rattle off stats of young local fighters like you wouldn't believe. constantly impressed with the amount of knowledge she has on basically, like, let's call it her hashtag everything martial arts.
We are awaiting the final decision. Sepulveda and Joey George go the distance. David Diamante is ready to crown a champion.
Ladies and gentlemen, after 5 rounds of action here at Lucky Strike, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judge C scored about 48-47 for Sepulveda. Judge B scores this contest 48-47 for George.
We're looking at
And Judge A scored this bout 48-47 for your winner by split decision and the new WKA North American 185-pound champion, Ariel Sepulveda.
So just as Gavin Van Black predicted, Ariel Sepulveda pulls out a split decision victory in the main event on Friday Night Fights. He edges Joey George by a hair, and he is the new 185-pound champion, the North American champion in the WKA ranks. And a great moment from the New York native by way of the Dominican Republic. In just a moment, we will send it up to Phoenix Carnivale with our winner as the Dominican flag is about to fly at Lucky Strike Manhattan. Great sportsmanship as always between our competitors, Sepulveda and George.
Ariel.
And here's Phoenix.
Ariel, congratulations. I know it always feels good to have a belt around your waist. Were you surprised when the judges said split decision?
It was a war, that's all I gotta say. I fought him before, I beat him, but, you know, I gotta make sure that today I would have, you know, the Manjaro decision, but I guess we were split decision. It was a war.
Because you guys had fought before, how did you prepare for him this time around?
I was more aware, you know, closing the gaps, because if I give him space and he, you know, he'll do his thing. So I wasn't sure. At first, when he caught me with the elbow, started bleeding, I didn't panic. I just felt more ferocious. Like, oh, he caught me. I don't like to see my own blood.
Congratulations, man. It was a very entertaining fight.
Thank you very much. And Anderson, A-team! 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 Thank you.
Great performance tonight.
So Ariel the Smash Sepulveda out of San Cristobal, Dominican Republic, will bring home some hardware tonight as he heads back to his new home in the Bronx. He is the 185-pound champion, the North American champion in the WKA, and Sepulveda does his team from Anderson's Martial Art Academy very proud. Gavin Van Black, your thoughts on Sepulveda's split decision victory?
Well, I said, like, he got cut in that first round. George went in, knew exactly what he wanted to do. You got a big, powerful athlete like Ariel Sepulveda. You got to set up something to try to finish the fight early. And he went to work with those elbows trying to get a cut, which would hopefully cause some kind of stoppage. It didn't cause a stoppage, and like Ariel said, he doesn't like the sight of his own blood, so it kind of lit him up. And you saw in the last 2 rounds, Sepulveda just gained momentum. He started finding and placing those knees to the head, which George still did not get that affected by, but still the points mounted up for Ariel. Hard won fight tonight, or hard fought win tonight for Ariel Sepulveda.
Sepulveda, your new 185-pound North American champion in the WKA. It takes a 5-round split decision win over Joey George to get it, but Sepulveda comes out victorious. Let's once again pay some thanks to our tremendous sponsors here on Friday Night Fights. Of course, the good folks at Lucky Strike Manhattan, and most importantly, Chang Beer, the pride of Thailand. Also the Brooklyn Athletic Club, Mohegan Sun, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, DJ Scratch, Adidas, and Fitness NYC. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on Friday Night Fights. That about does it for this installment of this wonderful Muay Thai card from the west side of Manhattan. A big A big thank you to the good folks here at this great venue at Lucky Strike Manhattan for hosting us. Thank you to our fans in attendance, our viewers on social media and YouTube, as well as FridayNightFights.com. And of course, thank you to the fighters for putting it all on the line and showing their incredible fighting spirit. The president of Friday Night Fights is Justin Blair. The operations director is Eddie Marini. Our Q Live sports team consists of producer Eric Brody, director Freddie Sobranis, our tremendous camera crew, Kevin Talbot, Victoria Harrington, and Mark Beckerman. My great broadcast partners, Phoenix Carnivale and Gavin Van Black, I thank them as well. Once again, my name's Ariel Agami. This has been Friday Night Fights. We'll see you next time, everyone.